You still have their number. You still mean to call. You still think about them sometimes. A song comes on, or something funny happens, and for a second they are the first person you want to tell. And then you don't. And neither do they. But you don't call. And they don't either. And the months have turned into years in a way neither of you quite noticed. Now there is a distance between you that is too wide and too old to easily explain, and neither of you is sure how to cross it anymore, or even whether you should try. No fight. No falling out. No specific moment you could point to and say, that's when it ended. It just dissolved. Slowly. Quietly. Like something left out in the open that nobody bothered to bring inside. If you have ever looked at your phone and scrolled past a name that used to mean everything, and kept scrolling, this video is about what is actually happening. And why it happens to almost everyone. And what psychology says about the invisible forces pulling friendships apart. Let's start with the research, because the numbers are more striking than most people expect. A 2015 study published in Psychological Science found that only 1% of friendships formed in 7th grade last until 12th grade. 1%. The rest quietly dissolved during those 5 years alone, most without a single conversation about it. Rose and Serafika's research found that the most frequent reason cited for ending close friendships was a slow death, two friends growing apart gradually, rather than any single dramatic event. Not betrayal. Not conflict. Just a slow accumulation of unlived shared time until there was nothing left to hold the relationship together. Many friendships, researchers found, seem to deteriorate past the point of being salvageable without the people in them even noticing their decline. The relationship ended before anyone decided to end it. Before anyone had the chance to fight for it. Because no one realized it needed fighting for until it was already gone. This is what makes drifting apart so psychologically distinct from a breakup or a falling out. There is no wound to point to, no villain, no clear beginning to the grief, just a gradual, almost imperceptible disappearance, and the quiet confusion of mourning something that technically still exists, something that has no end date, no memorial, no permission to grieve. Now let's talk about why this happens. Not the surface reasons, busy lives, different cities, new responsibilities. Those are real, but they are not the full explanation. Stay with this, because what comes next explains something most people have felt but never had the words for. If you find yourself nodding, subscribe. We go this deep every week. The first force is what researchers call contextual dependency. Many friendships are not as deep as they feel. They are as strong as the context that created them. School friendships run on proximity, shared routine, and enforced daily contact. Work friendships run on shared environment and regular interaction. The friendship feels close because the context manufactures closeness automatically. Remove the context, graduation, a new job, a move, and the relationship has to survive on its own. Many can't. This is not a failure of either person. It is the discovery of what the friendship was actually built on. Some friendships are built on genuine mutual knowledge and care. Others are built on circumstance, and circumstance, when it changes, takes the friendship with it. The second force is identity shift. People change, genuinely, substantially, in ways that sometimes move them away from the people they once were closest to. Values evolve. Priorities reorder. The person who shared your worldview at 20 may hold a different one at 35. The friend who understood your particular kind of ambition may no longer share it. The person you grew up alongside may have grown in a direction that feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. The things that previously magnetized us to our friends may no longer exist, or our connection to them may have dissipated. Context change, and we may not recognize all the factors that helped fasten the friendship in the first place. This kind of drifting carries a particular grief, because the person is still there. They are not gone. They have simply become someone you don't quite know anymore. And mourning someone who is alive and fine, just different, just distant, has no cultural script. There is no ceremony for it. No acknowledgement. Just a quiet private loss that most people carry without ever naming it out loud. The third force is maintenance failure, and this one is almost entirely invisible until it's too late. Friendship, and like family, is entirely voluntary. It exists only as long as both people keep choosing it. And adult life systematically deprioritizes that choice. Work. Romantic relationships. Children. Health. Financial pressure. The logistics of daily survival. Friendships do not come with deadlines, obligations, or social consequences for neglect, so they are the first thing quietly dropped when time becomes scarce. When you are always the one initiating, waiting for responses, or discovering major updates through social media, the friendship becomes emotionally costly. Carrying the weight of maintaining a connection alone is draining, and this asymmetry can become more painful over time than a direct argument. The tragedy is that both people often feel this asymmetry from their own side. Each one waits. Each one assumes the other isn't trying. Neither one reaches out. And the friendship dies in the silence between the people who both meant to call. The fourth force is conflict avoidance, and this one is the most psychologically interesting. Many friendships do not drift because people stop caring. They drift because something happened that nobody addressed. A perceived slight, a shift in the balance of effort, a moment when one person needed more than the other could give, and it was never spoken about. Adults tend to avoid conflict, choosing silence over uncomfortable conversations. Rather than naming the discomfort, rather than saying I felt hurt when or I've noticed we've been distant, people withdraw. Quietly dot in increments so small they barely register as decisions. Until one day the distance is too large to pretend isn't there. This is how friendships die without a cause of death. Not in a fight. In the accumulation of things that went unsaid. Now let's talk about what this costs, because the research on friendship loss is more serious than most people treat it. Social rejection activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, and triggers the same neural pathways as physical pain. The grief of a lost friendship is not metaphorical. It registers in the body as a genuine threat to safety and belonging. Studies consistently show that friend relationships are as important as family ties in predicting psychological well-being across the entire lifespan. Friendships are not supplementary to a life. They are structurally load-bearing. They are how humans regulate their nervous systems, maintain a stable sense of identity, and sustain meaning across the years when the self is constantly changing. When friendships erode, even gradually, even quietly, even without either person quite noticing, something essential goes with them. Not dramatically, just slowly, like a light being turned down rather than switched off, until one day the room is darker than you realize, and you are not sure when it happened. Loneliness fuels itself. Research by John Cacioppo found that when people feel isolated, they become more sensitive to social threats and more likely to interpret neutral interactions as rejection. The person who has lost several friendships without understanding why becomes progressively less trusting of new connection. The loss of old friends doesn't just hurt over time. It changes how available a person is to build new ones. The cycle compounds quietly across years without ever announcing itself. Now here is the part that almost never gets discussed honestly. The guilt. Most people who have drifted from old friends carry a private guilt about it, a sense that they should have done more, called more, tried harder. That the friendship dying is a reflection of some failure in them, their inconsistency, their busyness, their self-absorption. That guilt is often misplaced, because drifting is not usually the result of one person failing. It is the result of two people both underestimating how much active maintenance closeness requires, in a world specifically designed to make that maintenance difficult. Research on adult friendship consistently shows that culture systematically underinvests in friendship infrastructure, work, romantic partnership, and family are the priorities the social world is organized around. Friendship gets the leftover time, and leftover time, reliably, is not enough. There is also a specific and painful sub-experience inside drifting that deserves its own name: the one-sided friendship. The dynamic where one person is clearly trying harder than the other, where you are always the one initiating, always the one following up, always the one who sees the other person's life updates on social media before they think to tell you directly. This asymmetry is one of the most quietly corrosive experiences in adult social life. Because you cannot confront it without sounding needy, you cannot name it without seeming to be keeping score, so most people do what the research predicts. They withdraw, they stop initiating, they wait to see if the other person notices. And the other person, often caught in their own busyness, does not notice. And the silence fills in where the friendship used to be. This does not mean drifting is inevitable. It means it requires more intentionality than most people apply. More deliberate choice. More willingness to initiate even when it feels awkward. Even when time has passed. Even when the silence has stretched to a length that feels too long to bridge. Research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies of human flourishing in history, spanning over 80 years, found that the quality of close relationships is the single strongest predictor of happiness and health in later life. Not wealth, not achievement, not status, not career success. Relationships, close ones, the ones that require knowing and being known. The study's director, Dr. Robert Waldinger, summarized the finding clearly. The people who were most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. The friendships people let quietly die in their 30s and 40s were not small losses. They were, in the architecture of a full life, significant ones. The friendships that survive are not the ones between people who never get busy, they're the ones between people who reach out anyway, who tolerate the awkwardness of reconnecting after a long silence, who say, simply, "I've been thinking about you." That sentence, the willingness to say it first, is the entire gap between a friendship that drifts and one that doesn't. Now let's talk about the friends you have already lost, because most people watching this have at least one, someone who mattered, someone whose number is still in the phone, someone you think about more than you let yourself admit. The research on friendship dissolution is clear that most people, when asked, regret letting close friendships fade. Not all of them. Some distance was growth, some drift was necessary, but most people carry at least one friendship they wish they had fought harder to keep. And here is what the research says about reaching back. It is almost never too late. Studies show that reconnection attempts, even after years of silence, are far more warmly received than people expect. The fear that too much time has passed, that the other person has moved on, that reaching out would be strange or unwelcome, that fear is almost always wrong. The person on the other end has probably been thinking of you too. The friendship you think you lost may simply be waiting for someone to reach first. That someone can be you. If this video brought up someone specific, someone whose name just appeared in your mind, take that as a sign. Send them a message today. And if this resonated, subscribe for more psychology that actually goes somewhere. Like this video and share it with someone you've been meaning to reach out to. Make it the reason you do.